Well, and greetings and welcome to another episode of Lightbulb Moments. This is episode number 185. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for spending your precious ATM with us. Your attention and time, no money included. And today we have a special episode with Gaylen Paulson, who I'll introduce very shortly. Before I get to that, I want to thank a couple of our sponsors, including Lightheart Sanders and Zenoti. Thanks to both of those companies for being great partners and for helping to support this forum. A lightbulb moment is a realization, inspiration, or something that inspires you to take action and to create an even better life for yourself. So today we will be bringing to the mic very soon here Gaylen Paulson, who is Associate Dean and Executive Director of Texas Executive Education at University of Texas, Austin's McCombs School of Business. He is an award-winning professor who has experience in negotiations, conflict management, persuasion. He's transformed organizations from Apple to the U.S. Navy. He also covers the subject of change management, which is what part of what we're going to cover today. To put this into context, we are soon, we'll have our fourth annual Phil conference. And this is the second year that we're doing in partnership with the University of Texas, including the partnership with Texas Executive Education at their McCombs School of Business. So anyway, Gaylen, let's welcome you to the conversation. Good morning. How are you today?
Morning, Tom. How are you?
You know, you're a repeat guest. You've been on here before, and it was great to have you on. I think it was last year. And also, you did a phenomenal segment at last year's Phil that had me completely engrossed. And it was an activity that was super cool. Maybe we'll get to that in a little bit, but thanks for helping to be part of this very unique partnership we have with you and your team. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you guys and looking forward to seeing you here in Austin again. We've got started to turn the heat on. So it'll be nice and warm probably by the time you guys get here. But it's it's great having you guys in the building all the time. It's a a lot of energy when you come to campus, always ideas flowing, and giving a chance to kind of spark some of those light bulb moments is something we're happy to participate in.
So this partnership started, it was about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, but this is the second year because there's quite a bit of lead time till we a lot of lead time goes into planning something like this. It's finding the right speakers, the right professors, and this year we have you joining us for the second year in a row. You were one of the top choices, so we're glad you're coming back. You're going to do a segment that we actually can't talk about today because there's a game element to it. And if we talk about it too much, it sort of gives away, right? So what can you say about your segment without being a spoiler alert for those that are going to participate?
I'm a big fan of gamification, is what we call it. So, when you hear somebody speak, that's fine. But when you actually experience something and you can gamify it a little bit, then it gets really memorable. And hopefully, when you come across a situation in the future, you can take some lessons from that experience and take and apply those ideas. So last year we did the negotiation simulation. I think we bought or sold a sugar bowl together and gave people some scars in that process, perhaps. As they had, what's really interesting is when you get surprised by something, then that's when you learn. There's this learning perspective that says that unless you actually are surprised, you don't learn anything. And so, like if it just kind of fits your mental model already, you just go, yeah, of course, I kind of knew that. But when you have a surprise, you're like, wait, what happened there? And why did it happen? And what do I need to understand differently from that? So this year we're going to do a little exercise together as a group, and there's going to be some pain that comes through that process, but it's good pain. It's the no pain, no gain kind of model. So we'll have some struggles, we'll have some fun things that we do together, but then it'll be an opportunity to say, okay, like what was I thinking? And how could I have done things differently? What can I do differently tomorrow? So that's kind of what we'll be angling toward. But you're right. We don't want to spoil the surprise, because then we'll spoil the learning.
Well, you remind me, because last year, I'm trying to find a text message that I got from a attendee last year, who during your segment, she was sitting up about 3 rows behind me, and her text said this. I don't have, but this is what it was. Tom, I need to urgently let you know that this is the very best conference I've ever been to in my life. And it was during your segment. And, that's a light bulb moment for me. You said, unless there's surprise, we don't learn anything. Really? I'm
That's it.
surprised by that.
There you go. So it's an education or ed psych kind of principle concept, and the frameworks that we hold in our mind, are oftentimes pretty rigid and pretty defined, and especially as we're aging, right? Like we don't get surprised as often anymore. And so when you do encounter something that is different than what your expectations hold, that's when your brain has to engage. And what it does too is it triggers some endorphins, right? And so it wakes you up, and it makes you go like, oh, okay, what am I gonna do with this? And then your brain starts to reform, like literally starts to, there's some physical changes in your brain that those chemicals kind of induce that reflect a learning mentality and a learning mode. So super cool. So the challenge for folks as instructors and as speakers and things is to say like, all right, what kind of things can we do that kind of take people off their balance just a little bit?
All of this was exactly what we were hoping for when we came up with this theme, play. And I forget what really inspired it, but we got a little pushback from certain people, even internally, saying, people are going to misinterpret that, like, get away from their business, precious time away from their business, precious money. They have to travel, and, and the more we've leaned into this, the more I realize how profound this is. Just heads up, you might not know this, but 2 weeks ago, we had guests on here from the National Institute of Play, including the person who literally wrote the book on play. We'll fill you in on that in another conversation lately. But they're going to be part of Dr. Stuart Brown, his name is. He's 92 years young, and we're on with his daughter and his grandchild, who are all building this legacy. But he's done the most research. And the other thing is, his whole project actually started. Are you in your office today?
Yeah.
It started probably 3 blocks away from where you are right now. Spoiler alert, you'll have to listen to that episode later. This is really about a conversation with you. Okay. So you've got your segment, and then we have Raj. And can you tell us just a little bit about Raj?
So Raj Raghunathan is a friend of mine. He's a marketing professor, but I think he calls himself like Professor Happy or something, or Doctor. So he's a happiness researcher, and this kind of is in the vein of positive psychology in the last 10 to 15 years, but saying kind of what is the science behind happiness, and what kind of things which also can feel like play, like it's a little bit light. But the reality is, like, we need people to be happy as employees. We need people to be happy as customers. Like, what are the things that we need to do for people to put them in a place where they feel good, so that we can work effectively together and create long-term kinds of outcomes, right? As opposed to, and happy is a complex thing, it turns out. It's not quite so simple. And, so there's things that what Raj will talk about are some of the happiness sins. I think he'll say, so it's not a moral thing, but just things that we can do to squelch happiness, and, certainly unintended things, but by being a little bit more aware of what predicts happiness and what can take it in the other direction is something that can really be a valuable piece for us. So I think that'll be a fun session. He is a happy guy, which is an important thing. Is if he's off brand, like if you got a dour person coming in and talking about happiness, I would probably heal yourself. But no, he's a happy guy. So I think you'll enjoy his session for sure. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Well, like my opportunity today to spend time with you, I did have an episode with him. It was probably about 3 weeks ago. So I'll have
Okay.
JP drop in the chat here so people can listen in on the episode I had with Raj and talk about writing a book. He wrote a book with a very compelling title. If you're so smart, why aren't you happy?
Yeah.
Okay, so Raj will be there. So we got Gaylen, we got Raj, and then we got Shayna. And what I know about Shayna is that she does improv and has really it seems so compelling. I don't know how, I'm actually teaching 2 classes on Monday. I'm going to see if I can get out of them because I want to be in all these sessions myself. But she's an improv person and she brings improv into business and it's really cool. So I don't know how much you know about her work. I know we have a lot of members, but we think we really got a great team this year coming in. So
Yeah, I think you guys sound like you got a really great program. I've not seen the happiness stuff, or the improv stuff, but I'm curious about it myself too. So I think I want to go. I know that folks who have done these things and gone through these things have really found it to be an interesting and powerful experience. So I'll maybe see if I can't skip out of some stuff too.
all right. Well, so that's a little bit about the Phil, and then our partnership with you and your team, and you got a great department, Ashley, Bob. They're all great to work with. We love working with you guys. So shout out to you and thank you for being a part of it. Creates an extremely unique experience that you can find nowhere else in the industry in terms of this level of university partnership, and we're thrilled. We've got a topic you and I stumbled on yesterday, and I was so excited when we went here. I mean, you and really what inspired it is that you are speaking to some senior folks at a Fortune 50 tech company, and one of the areas that you educate and speak on out in the world is change and change management. Let's talk about this just for a minute, and then where our conversation went yesterday. But first, a
Sure.
little bit about just change and set a tone there for us.
Yeah. So I think that what's interesting is like the light bulb moments kind of thing, and the ideas kind of element. Ideas are always about change, right? So your ideas aren't to be the same. Your ideas are about how we might do things differently. And so when you start to look for ideas and you start to think about innovation, what innovation is about is taking ideas and actually implementing those things, right? And the hard thing that comes in with innovation then is that whole change process. That there's this old adage that says that the only person who really loves change is the baby with a dirty diaper. And so the rest of us are like, oh yeah, that's great for you. But I kind of like things the way they are now, even if they're not great. Sometimes we're kind of like just content because we know what we're gonna expect. I know what's expected when I show up at work tomorrow. Unless you say, okay, we're gonna do things differently tomorrow. We're gonna start changing things up. And then it's like, wait a second, what? And what's that gonna mean for me? And so we experience uncertainty. And ultimately, when we have a lack of certainty, what it does to us is it makes us feel out of control. And it turns out you and I just love to feel like we're in control and love to feel like, which is one of those happiness sins, incidentally, right? Like if you really think that you're in control, you can only control so much, but new ideas and changes are going to make you feel like you're not as in control as you were yesterday. And so you're coming in and you're proposing change to people and to employees or staff or even customers, and they're going to feel like disrupted and may not right away embrace that. So you're going to have to work to help people to say yes to change, regardless of what they wrote on their resume, right? They wrote on their resume, I embrace change. It's like,
Mm,
yeah, well, it's your idea, but maybe not so much when somebody else is telling you to do that.
change is not an option, and I mean, change is many cases thrust upon us, and use the word uncertainty. And uncertainty is something that we're living with now more than ever. And leadership is really dealing with uncertainty, and then also in many cases, it's knowing what change to champion, which inspired me into a conversation that we got into yesterday that I want to go to next. So a couple things inspired me about a topic that we riffed on a little bit yesterday. One was some work I'm doing with a multi-location salon and spa owner that is a recent new owner. And there's so many different changes that are needed. And we were really going through this process of saying, but which changes first, which are nice to haves, which are needs to have, and some type of framework. Because there's compensation changes, there's marketing changes, there's rolling out a new bonus plan, there's possibly bringing in a color management system, there's pricing. I mean, this whole litany. But how do you decide which change to promote? And then that led to a conversation, and something I start every podcast with, this framework of ATM, and using a framework to evaluate changes side by side. Which one's going to cost you the most attention, time, and money, and which one's going to give you the highest return? So, and it was fun to get some of your perspectives on this. So, thoughts?
Sure. Yeah. Like it's interesting when you come into a new environment, like as a new owner like that. And maybe he brings in experience from over here or over there. And what's kind of interesting is when you come in with fresh eyes, that can be valuable. In that maybe you don't bring some of the baggage or some of the assumptions about how you've always done things. The danger is you may not understand that, if I turn this dial, that doesn't operate independently of this lever and this slider, and like there's all these things kind of work together. We'll sometimes tell people, like, don't try to make any big changes for the first 60 days. Like you need to kind of learn how things are operating, right? As a new manager, as a new leader, you come into some situation. I had a boss one time who arrived on campus as dean, and he said, I'm going to go on an aggressive listening campaign. I thought that was really pretty neat. That what he did is he went and he listened to the faculty, and he met with the department chairs, and he met with alum, and he talked to the staff, and it was like, and it wasn't just about him sharing his vision, right? He said, I don't even know what the vision is yet. I've got to kind of understand the landscape. And so you go around and you kind of hear from people, and maybe you hear some things consistently. Here's the big gaps, here's the big issues that we're facing. And if you hear enough of those kind of things, I'll tell people sometimes that you need to hang out with complainers just a little bit, not too much, but you hang out with the complainers a bit, and what they're telling you is, here's where the gaps are. And the complainer may not fix anything, but they're telling you where the key pain points might be that you could address early on. Maybe that low-hanging fruit that would represent, and some of these things might be really quick wins. But one of the key things is not to just jump in so fast and try to make all these adjustments. People will have heard, things where it's like, well, at the last salon that I worked at, or at the last company I was in, or the way we did it over there. And it's like, yeah, you said that 100 times, right? Like, and so becoming an importer and importing ways that we've done things into our business here can be a valuable thing, but we got to understand that this business is not the same as that business, and that there's some unique dynamics. So you got to spend some time to get a lay of the land. And then you start to say, all right, where are the places where I can make a quick impact, get a couple of quick wins, which is going to build some credibility, some trust. And it's, same thing is going to happen through that listening campaign, right? It's like, you're going to build your credibility, you're going to build your trust. There's there's a 2-word definition that I love for trust, which is an easily memorized definition, because 2 words, right? But trust is when you are accepting vulnerability, right? It's accepting vulnerability, which is, I mean, such a cool definition. And it's actually an academic thing. But, you know, if you're making changes with people, that you've got to have them in a position where they trust you, where they're willing to kind of go down a path with you and to take a risk, right? It's a risk to change things. And so you got to spend that time to kind of build that trust, to build that vulnerability kind of willingness, in order to kind of implement and start to do some things differently.
Yeah, so many things you said that I love, including the aggressive listening campaign. That's magical. What I can say about this leader is his instincts have been great. I mean, he's built trust. He's been a listener. He has really empowered people, and so we're now past that point, and it's now okay. What changes? I've done my due diligence. I've heard from everybody. I've built people trust me. I'm stepping up as a leader, and now it's making decisions. And one of the things that we've been working on, Gaylen, you might not be aware of this, but we just completed a profitability study. Really the only industry study that really measures profitability through the actual collection of profit and loss statements, with the partner with the CPA firm and then other analysts. And in there, it suggests 5 different key levers that really move profitability. And that's a big part of what we're doing lately is, which lever do you move? You can't move all levers. There's labor, there's revenue mix, there's space, there's operating expenses. And where do you put your attention? Which lever? And that's really coming up. And in a lot of our insights when we guide people on how this data can help them become more profitable, but again, it's change again, and you can't do everything at once. So
I love that. That is so cool, because I mean, it's such a value add for people to have benchmarking and to say, like, what does good look like? Because we a lot of times we have no clue. And we know historically from ourselves, perhaps, but to see what other folks are doing and then to convene those people, it's like, okay, you're not my competitor. You're coming from a different town, or you're from a different region, or right, it's a different state. But to kind of share out some best practices and to see what people are doing. I mean, I think it's pretty cool, because they've been vulnerable with you, right? By giving you their data and giving you
I'm so
access.
glad you said that. Yes. Yeah. And I honestly feel privileged and grateful for the trust that has been put upon us, because it's not lost on us that they're sharing their P&Ls with, in many cases they haven't shared with anybody before. So I do express gratitude and privilege to be in that seat, where we've been trusted to do something with it. And we could, don't get me started on the data deficit in the professional beauty industry, because data is major lacking. And in fact, one of the other things that we have going on with the university, Gaylen, is our partnership with data scientists from IC Squared, and that's been great. So many tentacles to this partnership. All right, let's stay on change here a little bit. So let's look at this framework. And so framework being, so I'm about ready to embark on something. What is the cost in money? What's the cost in time? Those are a little bit easier to measure, and you don't have to get it exactly right, but just some estimate. But what about the measurement of attention? And, because to me, that's a huge currency, and everybody's pecking at our attention. So let's unpack that currency, if we can, for a minute.
Yeah, well, so we all have limited cognitive capacity, right? And so there's only so much that your brain can do, and there's only so many decisions. Although that there's talk about how many decisions you make, like hundreds of decisions in a day, or thousands of decisions in a day, micro decisions perhaps. But like, there's so many choices that you're making, and so the attention that we have and how we just determine how to allocate that, super interesting. I think it was Obama that they said he always wore the same suit, not the same suit, but literally, but you don't want to make a decision about what suit and what tie am I going to wear today. It was like, you kind of had the same thing every day. It's kind of the same thing, same thing, same thing. Because he's like, I don't want to have to make another decision about that, which isn't going to be consequential. Right. So, where you're choosing to focus your mental energy, which, really is not just about, the thoughts and the decisions that you're making, but also the emotion that goes behind this, and some of the stress management. Like, okay, this is hard. Change isn't easy, and new ideas, although they might be exciting, take a lot of work, the time, the effort, but the mental drain is a real thing. So, some people are good at knowing when their mental energy tends to be high. And they'll say like, okay, I'm really good in the mornings. Great. Put some of that hard stuff in the mornings. So we were like, hey, I do my best work at 10 p.m. Kids go to bed, and now like I can focus for a couple hours, right? And I can bang some stuff out if I can just get that momentum going. So, knowing when your energy kind of peaks and how you can leverage that and make decisions during some of those moments, I think is a valuable thing as well.
That reminds me of something I took away. I think it was Daniel Pink's book. I think it was called When. I hope I got this right. But he talked about 2:55 p.m. And that is apparently the statistical low for us energetically. And there's all sorts of data, like, for example, don't get surgery at 2:55 p.m. There's actually the most malpractice suits occur for operations and medical procedures that time of day. All right. So anyway, but we're hitting on something really important here, because we're often looked upon to advise companies, and really understanding that they're under a lot of stress. Just running the operation is enough, but this idea of bringing in some needed change, whether it's profitability or something else, is taxing. And I got so excited when we were talking about this with you yesterday, and this whole idea of change fatigue and decision fatigue is something people don't talk about.
Yeah. But and I think that there's a lot of perseverance and a lot of resilience that's required in these kind of things. And so, like, if I even within a given decision or within a given change initiative, like it's just going to take a lot more time and work than what we think about sometimes. It's like, okay, this is low-hanging fruit. This is gonna be no problem. It could take me 3 days. It's like maybe 3 weeks, maybe 3 months. That some of these things are super effortful. And the problem is too, so I came across something that I thought was really neat, that looked at, it kind of compared this process to like an overseas trip, right? And so if you think about like when you first are taking off in the plane, when you first take off, like you watch that ground just flying underneath you, right? It's just zooming along. And then, you get away from the coast, and that kind of fades into the background. Now you're over the ocean, and it doesn't look like you're making any progress at all, right? It just feels like there's just like ocean for hours and hours. It's like, have we even moved, right? When you first start, like you see movement and you see progress. It's like, okay, we got that energy, and look at how we're moving along. And then you kind of get into that middle stretch, and you got nothing going on, right? Even though you might be making 500-mile-an-hour progress, you don't feel anything. And then when you start to get to the end again, you start to see that ground approaching. You see the shoreline coming, and then you start to see the ground moving underneath. You get to the airport, and it's like, oh, we're moving fast. And it's like everybody's energized again. We kind of get perked back up. But it's that long slog in the middle that can require so much endurance, and it's so frustrating. So like, are we making any progress at all? So one of the things they suggest is like, okay, don't just make it into one trip. Don't make your change or your initiative into one thing. Like have lots and lots of little sub goals. Okay, we're gonna get to here. We're gonna get to here. We're gonna get to here. Get to here. Right. And so like it's great to have that map open sometimes on on the screen on the flight, right? It's like, okay, we're here, we're making progress. What's the time left to destination? And maybe we communicate that to our folks. Maybe we, we communicate it to ourselves, because it's not just about how our team feels, but it's about how we're feeling too, with that fatigue that you're talking about, right? To kind of keep people energized and see the momentum, and to communicate that progress, the sub goals and kind of updates is a cool thing.
So when you, for example, this week you're with a Fortune 50 tech company, what are some of the things that it's workshop? Is that really what you do more than anything else? Give us an idea of what you might workshop with a company of that size.
Yeah, so I'm seeing, I think 120 senior folks in one division, where they are being tasked with a fairly sizable adjustment in their budget, and big change initiatives that occur over a period of a couple of years. And so, we're working with them to say, like, how are you gonna keep your people engaged? How are you going to, make sure that you're healthy in this process? And what are our expectations, and how are we going to communicate things out? What are some of the things, the tools and the resources, like we've been talking about, that you can deploy to kind of keep people going? And that one of the things we'll be talking about is visibility of the leader, that sometimes you can kind of isolate, and there's this propensity to kind of like hunker down, and this is going to be a hard time for us, and instead of being out there and as visible as maybe you might be, there's kind of a cocooning kind of mechanism that happens, which works against us from a happiness standpoint, both for us and for our people. So we'll be reviewing some of the research and some of the findings that really kind of might be counterintuitive, might be surprising, like we talked about at the outset, that can help us to maybe do a little bit better job. Because I think that what people are doing is, I mean, they're trying their best, right? To go from A to B, and we're going to make some mistakes along the way, and we need to be gracious with each other. But it's a journey, and it's not an easy journey that we're embarking on when we're talking about change initiatives, for sure.
Just reminded, didn't even think about this till something you just said right now. Another thing that we do is we help with succession planning and talk about a change.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, we just filmed a succession masterclass when we were down in Austin last month, Gaylen, and we really go through 3 types of readiness: business readiness, seller readiness, and buyer readiness. And it's getting ready for change. I mean, you just kind of brought that framework into my brain here too, thinking about this. So
yeah, I think that the things that you're doing on to kind of prepare is like, the more that you can do to get out ahead of things, and to if we say learning is happens when you're surprised. Surprise and change don't go well together. learning and surprise go well together. Change and surprise, not as a fruitful connection. So, like, what kind of things can we do to kind of help with the readiness, like you're talking about? And what's interesting too is that sometimes people are surprised themselves, in terms of, like, I thought I was ready, right?
mm-hmm.
And it turns out maybe I'm not as ready as I thought. Or sometimes we say change comes slowly then suddenly, and it's like, whoa, what happened there? We have a program here where we bring people onto campus for a year. Either we call it the executive gap year, or we call it the kind of post-retirement kind of transition thing before Act 2 or Act 3. Because even though retirement looks like it's going to be a great thing, it looks like it's going to be super fun, that's a transition too. That's a massive change. And so, as someone's succeeding upward, and it's like, okay, I'm going to turn the reins over to somebody, can they take their hands off? Should they do a workout? Should it be a period of 3 months, 6 months to kind of hand this off? Like, how does that look? And what's the right model for that? But it's an interesting life stage too, when you're starting to let go of something, and as a seller or as a founder, for sure. Right? Like if I'm a founder, this is kind of part of my identity. That's tricky.
Yeah, that's very tricky. Gaylen, always a delight. I'm watching the clock here, and let's everybody give Gaylen a virtual round of applause. Always love spending time with you, and you'll be getting another $1 million light bulb, so you can, as a repeat guest. Always love conversing with you. I always have some aha. Unless surprise, you don't learn. Aggressive listening campaign, the whole idea about trust. A lot of great nuggets as usual, Gaylen. Thank you.
Pleasure. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you soon down here in Austin.
Yeah, we are too. Again, thanks for being a guest, and thanks for all of you for tuning in. Put some comments there if you are live, or if you listen to the podcast or watching the YouTube. We love hearing your perspective. So thanks again, and we appreciate all of you, especially you, Gaylen. So thanks again for being our guest today.
Pleasure. Take care.
All the best, everyone.